Welcome to The Winning Hand, the podcast all about Marvel Champions, one card at a time, now with video. So, I am here today with a very special guest. He's a celebrity in our community.
No.
You know him. You love him. The villainous man himself, Villain Theory.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be back here. It's been a while. I sort of forgotten what it's like on the podcast. It's rumor has it the previous episode I was in, was it episode 17? Some would say the best episode. I've only heard myself say that, but it's just an opinion that's out there.
I heard someone say it. I don't know. Who said it doesn't matter, right? Like, it was said.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that. Episode 17, that was a long time ago. Do you remember the card we talked about?
Yeah, it was Fantomex. Really interesting card.
Hey, do you play much Fantomex?
Nope.
Have you played Fantomex since that episode?
Yes, I have. A couple of times, but he's, with the new X-Force allies we got in Bishop's Precon in Age of Apocalypse, there's now just better X-Force choices that he's just slipped down and, been pushed out of a few decks, I would say.
Off the top of my head, and I didn't prepare, I don't remember what score we gave Fantomex, but if you were looking back at it now, before we get to today's card, what would you say Fantomex is now? Like, how has your view changed on him at all, or not in the least?
I think my opinion was slightly optimistic back then. He was newer, so it was more exciting. But I still think he's good. I feel like we gave him a 6 or a 7. Right now, I'm feeling more like a 6. Like, he's very usable, but, he's not pushing his way into decks.
So you've never used him since then?
Used him a couple times.
Okay. It's an interesting dynamic with the card, and I hope they do more of that. I don't want them to overuse it, but we did talk about Moon Girl in an episode recently, and I mentioned there that I wish they had done that with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That could be another way to bring those two in, how they're kind of linked like that. And I'm sure there's other characters. I'm not a huge comics guy, but I'm sure there's other characters they could do that with. I just think... I don't play Fantomex, like, really ever. Yeah, leadership's not high for me anyway. I'm not a big leadership player. And then it's like an expensive leadership ally, and it's going to have to build around it. I don't know. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, for me, mostly right now, it's if I need, like, someone to put upgrades on in, like, kind of an upgrade-based deck. He's not a bad candidate because Eva can heal him. But, yeah. I do want them to do more, like you say, though, with, I like how with specialized training, the kind of linked card is set aside. And I wonder if they could maybe have like a card set aside. You play the card from your deck, then it brings it in. Just having Eva in your deck does feel a little bit bad. When she comes up in your hand, it's like, well, I can't Play this card because I don't have Fantomex. So that is one of the less fun points of it, but it's still a very fun concept.
Yeah, it's a fun concept, and I think, I agree. They should pull each other out, right? Like they should. I don't know. One doesn't pull the other one out. Weird. Then you just have a dead card. Anyway, we are not talking about Fantomex today. I just wanted to kind of revisit that a little bit because that's the last time you were here. We have been doing a fun series together about every hero's worst card, which has been going well. There's been some interesting discussions online about that. I've been seeing hashtag Justice for Shield Toss trending recently. I think that was the first episode. No, the second episode must have been.
Second.
Yeah, because of the Wave 1. And I feel like people are still surprised about that one.
It comes up on my Discord probably more than you're aware of, even. It's in the comments, it's here and there. That episode where I mentioned Simpsuit, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Like, I like the card, but it's not the biggest fan of it. And I thought people were going to, annihilate me for that. But it turns out the sleeper controversial pick was the Shield Toss, which I'm going to softly throw you under the bus. I think that was your choice. But
yes.
Captain America has incredibly good cards, so
that was my choice. Your choice was the helmet, I think, and a lot of people say I've not seen a lot of people side with me on that one. But like you said, I think all of his cards are pretty good. He wasn't probably the hardest choice we've had to make, but that's the one card I see consistently. Every time I hop in your Discord, it's like someone's throwing me under the bus about Shield Toss again.
It's become a meme. I can't remember if we said it, but the series is every hero's worst card. But, the worst is, in quotation marks, air quotes. It's, we're looking to see maybe what's the least good they have and then say good things about them. And I'm really enjoying that series. It's I was playing a game with someone recently at one of my local sort of board game cafes, and they say, "What's your favorite video to record?" And what popped into my head is, uh, that series of you and the podcast. I like talking to other people, so I am
Mm.
very happy to be back on here as well.
Yeah, well, awesome. I'm happy to have you. It's just you and me today, but let's get right into some things that we've been playing recently. And why don't you go ahead and go first? Tell me what you've been playing recently or what you've been enjoying recently.
I've been playing, surprise, surprise, quite a bit of Nightcrawler,
Mm.
new hero,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been pretty interesting. He's been a little bit different than I expected, but I've been playing, I don't want to say more, but whisper it quietly. Maybe I've been enjoying it more than Nightcrawler. I've been enjoying taking his protection cards into various other decks.
Mm-hmm.
So, to speak of Black Widow and Synth Suit, I've been enjoying summoning minions with a certain new card, and then I can do more with Synth Suit on the hero phase, and I think that's been really fun.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. I played a little bit of Nightcrawler, and then I played many of his cards, his aspect cards, in other decks. I was really, really hyped for Nightcrawler, and then he came out, and I didn't like him as much as I thought I would, which is kind of a trend recently. I felt the same way about Iceman when he came out. I was very excited for Iceman, and then he came out, and I've said on the podcast I didn't really like him. He wasn't for me. And I did the same thing. He came with a lot of good aspect cards, and I put those into other heroes, and have been quite enjoying those. We did a whole episode with Andy R, another pod or another deck builder, where we talked about Take That as an episode. And so I think Take That's a fun card, and a lot of things he came with. And yes, we will get to a certain card that helps you summon minions very soon. But I'll just say I've been playing Iceman recently, and I've been saying I haven't enjoyed him, and then I recently was inspired to go back and try him again, and he's growing on me, I will say. So I came in kind of negative early on. I was a little disappointed, like right out of the gate. I had very high hopes, and it wasn't what I expected, and I think that just kind of brought me down. And then as I played him more and kind of went back to him, I thought, okay, I kind of like the hook. I kind of enjoy the frostbite mechanic. It's cool. It feels similar to Banff in some ways. Like I can see the through line between those two designs. And I think I like Banff better. Like it's implemented better. The frostbite can be frustrating. It's hard to get on sometimes. When it's working, it feels really good. Like you're slapping down frostbites and you're, freezing people solid, and it feels good. And then there's just times when I feel like I have to defend in the villain phase because I'm not at a health point where that didn't make any sense. I'm just like not at a very high health, so I have to defend, and then I kind of waste it there because I can't ready again and put another one on later. So it doesn't always feel good. But then there's times where you pull out his card, and I'm terrible with card names, but the one that puts in frostbite on all the minions, and then the villain does 3 to everybody. Like that feels cool because you're just putting more on that are going to be around for other things. Yeah, I played a minion heavy scenario recently. I played Mysterio with the Band of Badoon extra set, modular set, and so like tons of minions coming out all the time, which is cool. And so, I just was a lot of opportunity to put things on and move things around. But there was one point where I think I froze Mysterio solid, right? And he didn't activate, and then he put a frostbite on. Then I attacked him, put a frostbite on. Then my next turn, I froze him solid again, and at some one point he had like 4 frostbites, and he only attacks for 2. But it's just fun to get them all on there, and then you're dealing a bunch of damage. I have come around a little bit. I still am a little disappointed by his Ice Wall card. I think it's too expensive, and his economy is a little rough. There are times when I feel like I have a bunch of cards in my hand that cost 3, and I just can't play them all. And that feels bad sometimes.
Yeah. I have, I was really excited for Iceman before he released, but in my view, probably the most negative review I have done to date. In fact, that's no question about that. But I do like that he's really unique, and I see that and I appreciate that. But for me, just a little bit clunky, a little bit strange. But I have been waiting to go back to him. I feel pretty optimistic about it too. Actually, I feel like when I revisit him, I would enjoy him a lot. But I have kind of just purposely put him aside. Not going to play him for a bit. Kind of let that negative first impression move aside because I do think he has a lot of fun stuff. That card you mentioned, I think is Arctic Blast, Arctic Attack. It's the area one. I do think that is
Mm.
incredibly satisfying to use as well. One of the early games when I was, really testing him for the review was against the Venom Goblin, and you start off with all those encounter cards on Expert, but then I can, blast all the minions that came in, and even the ones that survived, they're dealing less damage afterwards. So it's got that, extra kind of use there that I think is really enjoyable. And I like what you were saying about Banff and the through line because I think for me, while I've enjoyed Nightcrawler, he's been a bit lower than I expected, and I think
Mm.
some of the problems I have with Frostbite on Iceman are similar to the Bamf stuff on Nightcrawler. Because although I really like Bamf, I kind of always feel like I need another one.
Hmm.
I need like a little bit more flexibility somehow with it, just a little pinch. I don't want it to be given to me, but I would say those characters, because they need upgrades in certain places to use certain things to their full potential, you know, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily feel like what they get for that exceeds what other characters get, but other characters don't have to try and line these multiple pieces up to get those things. I feel like it's a little bit more work and a little bit clunkier
Hmm.
for not really extra reward. It's probably going to be my general, very soft criticism, but they're still interesting, and I like that they're playing with upgrades from signature cards.
Yeah, I think for me, Nightcrawler is like the one I was the most hyped for in a number of cycles now. Like I was really excited for him. His articles looked really awesome. His cars look really cool. And he didn't disappoint me as much. Like I didn't have the initial disappointment the same way I had with Iceman, but it felt clunky. And I've been saying to a lot of people that I wish there was like one more copy of Banff in there. Like I feel like three is not enough. And to pay one to get it back doesn't feel great. It's just hard to kind of move it around. And I don't think they've perfected this like signature upgrades mechanic yet. And we'll get into other things I've been playing recently, but I've been playing a lot of Valkyrie too. And I'm a big Rogue fan. I've kind of come and gone and come again on Rogue. And so this, like, I don't know, it just all of them feel a little clunky. And I don't know if it's just the way the game mechanics are, but Deathglow feels a little odd. I feel like Touched feels a little strange. Banff and Frostbite, none of them feel super satisfying the way I would hope. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I would overall agree with you. I think for me, I actually really like Touch in general, but my biggest sort of gripe with Rogue, who I really like, I recently did my top, most fun heroes. I ranked all of them. People have been begging me to do it for ages, and Rogue made it into my top 10. I will spoil here, just in case anyone wants to watch it and hasn't already. But Rogue scored really, really high. But my big problem is Bulletproof Bell
Mm,
wants Touch to be on the villain, or it
yeah.
just straight up doesn't work. And I feel like Marvel Champions in general, but Rogue especially, it's a game slash Rogue is a character that really allows you to express yourself how you want to play. I think that's one of its strengths. And by forcing me to put this card that I can put in different places and get cool effects to go onto the villain, or my best card just doesn't work, is kind of the Achilles heel of the design, the one big weakness, or biggest at least, because it just takes away that ability to express myself, or it makes expressing myself with this fun combo that means I put touched on an ally or another player. Now my good card doesn't work,
Hmm.
and I think that's a similar thing for Valkyrie. You put Deathglow on the villain, and suddenly it's stuck there, and you have this. There's this kind of one choice that the game either wants you to make or you shouldn't make, and I think that's restricting those kind of things in terms of that. The one signature upgrade design I think works particularly well, and it works a little bit differently, is the whole kit isn't built around this upgrade as much, but is Cyclops, who puts on all these different
Hmm.
upgrades, and they do one kind of cool thing, and then they kind of fall off. So he's not super dependent on getting one in the right place all the time. So it's a little bit different there. Um,
And yet
but
he is, because his optic blast doesn't work if it
yeah,
doesn't have an upgrade attached. So like that's a frustration I've had with him as well. Or
mm,
sometimes I just don't draw one and then I just can't use my optic blast ability and that feels bad.
yeah,
I agree that he's better than the others. I mean I think with Valkyrie has a lot of problems and she's been talked to death in the community. Rogue's Touched works better than Valkyrie. It's almost like a 2.0 implementation of that mechanic. But Valkyrie has a Shield Maiden card, which is very similar to Bulletproof Bell. It's not nearly as good, but it's your defense card, right? And it interacts with her upgrade. The problem with that is that Valkyrie is incentivized to defeat enemies and essentially remove her upgrade from the game in order to ready and do other stuff. So, but if you do that, then Shield Maiden is useless. And the same thing with Bulletproof Bell. Like, my criticism about Bulletproof Bell all along has been that the rest of Rogue's signature cards interact with where touched is. Not like it has to be somewhere. It's just depending on where it is, you get A, B, or C. Except for Bulletproof Bell, which is simply, if it's not here, it's useless. And I really wish it had the same thing as like her other signature attacks and thwarts do, where, you know, if it's here, you get this. Or if you have aerial right now, you get this. Or you get plus defense, or you get a tough card, whatever. Just make it more flexible, because that's her whole kit. And that card stands out to me because it's so good, and yet it's so limiting that I can't really use it a lot. And I find myself sometimes looking at my deck, like how thin it is, how many copies of Bulletproof Bell have I seen recently? Am I likely to draw into one? Should I put it on the villain right now in anticipation of getting it? Sometimes you do that and then you draw two of them, and that kind of sucks. Sometimes you don't put it there and you draw it and you're like, well, it's a dead card. I don't know. It just feels weird.
Yeah, I fully basically agree. I feel like they're close to greatness with these designs. They just need these little tweaks to make it not feel bad putting it somewhere where they kind of incentivize you in other ways to put it. You know, there needs to be kind of I don't mind if there's downsides here and there, but like to make certain cards feel almost redundant or just very bad or awkward, or just it just needs that little bit of refining, and I think they'd be there.
Yeah, I think they're getting closer. They're iterating on that idea, and they're getting there. Like the multi-villain designs, right? We started with Wrecking Crew, which was a bit of a train wreck, no pun intended, and then it's developed into the Sinister Six and the Four Horsemen, which I think are universally pretty well received.
Yeah, I would agree. I love the Four Horsemen.
Is that your favorite one of the multi-villain scenarios? Sorry if I'm ruining a video here.
No. I think I've actually talked about them. I did an evolution of villains focused on the multi-villains, and that video, I think Four Horsemen are the ultimate multi-villain. They're actually the most similar to Wrecking Crew of all the other scenarios, I think, but they do everything in kind of the right way, and they kind of just abandon ideas like the villain-specific side schemes that stick around. They just kind of abandon that completely, and they keep the things that work really well, and I enjoy it.
It's really tricky. I like the Sinister Six as well, but I think it gets better with the Four Horsemen. I agree. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about you've been playing recently?
Not Marvel Champions, but I have been talked into Spirit Island, which I played, a good bit. I own it and everything.
Yeah, you've talked about it before.
Talked into getting an expansion for it, which was very badly timed because I got Nightcrawler very shortly afterwards. So I've been splitting my time a little bit between Nightcrawler and the new protection stuff and Spirit Island, but that's been very fun. So I highly recommend that to anyone who hasn't tried it, who likes kind of tactical positioning kind of games.
Yeah, you've talked about Spirit Island before, I know, on the Discord, and I think maybe in videos that you like that game. It wasn't for me. I tried it. I didn't love it. But, luckily there's millions of board games, so there's other ones to try. All right. Should we talk about the card of the day? There's a lot I want to say today.
Yeah.
So let's transition to the card of the day. Villain Theory, since you are the guest today, would you like to read the card for us? And then we can talk about it. If you are watching this on YouTube, of course, you can see it on the screen and you can read along with Villain Theory and see if he makes any mistakes. No pressure.
The pressure I felt is like a lead weight.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Fortunately, I've read this card before. I had the great privilege of being able to reveal this. I still don't know how that came about or if it will ever happen again.
Yeah.
But I'm very,
this
very,
is one of
very
your spoiler
happy.
cards, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was so happy because I was so excited to see it. And we'll talk about how it is in practice. But this card is Come Get Me Bub, which is immediately maybe one of my favorite card names in the game. It's, maybe feels more like a signature card for a certain Canadian, but it's got a lot of character to it. It's a zero-cost event, tactic traded, hero action. Discard cards from the encounter deck until you discard a minion. Put that minion into play engaged with you. Heal 3 damage from your identity, and give your identity a tough status card.
Yeah, this is a protection event, we should say, if you're not watching. And it is a mental resource if you choose to spend it on something. It is custom art by Fasundo Movano. I'm really sorry if I butchered that. I tried. Okay. So we go through a couple categories: art, theme, power, and fun. The first one is art, and wow, I love this art.
I absolutely adore this art. I
Yeah.
think it's so good. Like, I do not know how to pronounce the artist's name either, but I would love to see a lot more of this in the game.
Yeah, it's really great. So if you're not watching, we'll try to describe it, right? It's Wolverine, and he's looking right at the viewer, right at the camera, right? And he's got one hand with his claws out, the other one he's kind of beckoning you over, like, come get me, bub. There's like sparks in the background and red, and he's kind of lit from the side as if there's fire around there. So there's some kind of a battle or something has happened. And it's very evocative, and it's just like striking. And his like smile, like he's enjoying this. The classic yellow and blue suit, I really, really like this a lot.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent description. The background is quite plain. It's basically a black background, but then there's like red light coming up from, sort of out of shot fire or maybe very distant fire. But and then basically serves to create this like dramatic glow. It's really, really good. Like you can see like the shine on the other side of his mask thing and his claws, and it's just a simple concept. It's Wolverine beckoning with a grin with his claws out. It's come get me, bub. I think this is really good. I think this is like hard to beat.
Yeah, I agree. This is a really, really good art. And I think, just to kind of step back and think about Nightcrawler, because this came in his pre-con for a second, I think his art across the board is really good, including the aspect cards that came in that pack. I think a lot of them are really, really strong. So I'm really happy to see that the art continues to be a big, big part of the game. If you're playing a card game and you have them in your hand and you're looking at them all the time, or you're playing them on the table and using them all game, you want them to look good. I want some good art. And so this is a really, really good example of an excellent art piece.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, another game I haven't played for a little while, but Gloomhaven, quite a known game. Some of those cards are just text and then text. But most card games, a lot of card games, especially Marvel Champions, you got this really awesome art, and then you got the text. So if you're gonna have art, better make it cool. And I agree. I think Nightcrawler's pack overall really good art, and this is probably my favorite. I would say from the pack. I'm gonna go out there. Yeah.
I think if Fantasy Flight is listening to this, and I hope they are, Tony said he listens when he was on the show. I really hope they go back to doing some of those promo art cards they did in Wave 1 or the core set maybe, that were just not the heroes, but they were just cards, and I've talked about them before. Like Stealth Strike had one, I think Tackle had one, Dropkick had one.
Yeah,
I really hope they go back to those. What's that?
And Get Over Here.
Oh yeah, Get Over Here. They had a bunch of those, and they're really cool, and this is one I would love to have as one of those full art cards. I don't love that they're the cards that they are, because I think a bunch of those cards don't get played anymore. I was just building a deck and I saw Tackle in there. I had the promo version and I was like, oh, I want to put this in. And then I was like, no, I don't. And I put it back in the box. It's cool to look at. I just don't want to play that card in my deck. But yeah, I wish we got a full art of this, because it would be really great. So thematically, let's talk about how the overall theming of the card works, from title to flavor text to art to action. There's no flavor text here, I should say, but those are kind of what we look at here. Thematically, it's like a home run, right? Like the art is awesome, but then the title just immediately also draws you in, and you think you know what it is, then you see the art, and then you see what it does. It's perfect.
Yeah, a little bit behind the scenes for card reveal. I received it in an email, and as soon as I opened it up, I saw it and I laughed at the name because it's fun. It's not just thematic, it's fun, but it says exactly what it's going to do. I mean, come get me, bub. But then you got Wolverine beckoning, and what it does is it brings in a minion, so he beckons the minion. Like the theme of the whole thing throughout, I think, is really good. And even the reference to Wolverine, I mean, the card heals you. So, I mean, even that could be argued to be kind of in theme. If it did something completely un-Wolverine, I don't know. I just think this works on every level.
Yeah, I agree. This is such a good card, and I almost wish it had come with Wolverine, but I don't think he was protection in his pre-con, was he?
He was aggression.
It's aggression. Well, this is, I think a card that protection has been asking for a while, to be honest. I think this is a great card. We've long had Looking for Trouble, which is a fun card in aggression and was super necessary for a lot of those minion builds that they wanted to have. But, I mean, you could have this in every aspect, right? I'm glad Protection's getting one. There's no reason Justice couldn't have one. And I guess they kind of have one, right? One way or another is like, it's not a minion, but I guess it's equivalent to some degree.
A little bit, yeah. But I would be open to minion summoning there. I recently recorded the imminent, it'll probably already be out by the time this is out, but an episode of Shadow of the Cast with Nelson. Something that was actually noted, I think, from a viewer question was that, are some cards, bleeding into aspects, taking from aspects where they shouldn't. And, a lot of people I've heard, well, a couple comments, have said this is maybe more of an aggression card because it summons a minion. But I think as long as half the card kind of fits the theme of the aspect, it's okay to borrow elements. Looking for Trouble, which is the aggression card, which summons minions. It summons a minion, pretty aggression. Aggression interacts with minions a lot. But it also removes threat, which you could say, oh, that's justice. That's, why did they get to remove threat? And I think in the same vein, you could say for Come Get Me Bub, finding a minion is maybe a little bit more aggression, although I would argue Protection does have a lot of cards that specifically interact with minions. I think it's fine. But the healing free and then giving a tough status card is very Protection, so I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think your example of Looking for Trouble thwarting is super appropriate here because that is, but I think it's like, it's doing an aggression thing and then helping to kind of cover up a weakness, which is what this is doing too, right? It's doing a protection thing and then covering up a weakness with the tough card. I don't know. I think it's great. I think minions are a huge part of the game and they continue to grow. And I think minion builds are just fun. Like maybe that's just me, but I love aggression minion builds. I've long enjoyed protection minion builds, but the weaknesses, there's no way to find them. And now there's a way to find them.
Yeah. It's interesting because I typically don't love summoning minions in. There's an ally called Angela in Aggression, which also does it, who I like a little bit more than Looking for Trouble. But Come Get Me Bub, I would say, and maybe we'll get onto this soon, I feel like it's just a little bit better. But the thing is, I don't play Looking for Trouble much because it just doesn't feel quite good enough to me. Especially with this huge variety of minions in the game, some can be quite nasty. Just doesn't quite do enough. Whereas Come Get Me Bub is in a good space that I play it more. So I just kind of like the evolution of it, and I kind of like where it's at.
I do agree that as minions have gotten tougher, using that card, it's not quite as easy as just grabbing a minion out because sometimes like the minions you pull out are worse than, thwarting for 3 off the main scheme or whatever it does. But this healing your identity and giving a tough card is awesome. And also you don't have to heal. So it's not like What Doesn't Kill Me, where the healing is part of the cost. If I'm already at full health, I can still play this to get a tough card. And the fact that it costs 0 is really, really great because 0 cost cards just feel good. You just play it down, don't have to pay for it. And it feels appropriately costed. Another standout protection card for me recently was Taunt. And there's been some difference of opinion, I think, on that card. Some people don't like it or don't think it's worth it. I've seen discussions in Discord about, well, if you're spending 2 effective resources and getting attacked and you're only drawing 3 cards, blah, 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 blah. I think it's great. I think it's fun. Again, you're getting attacked, which is what protection is doing, and then you get to draw cards as a result. That's cool. But I think I would like it better if it was 0 cost, which almost feels appropriate. I do think 1 doesn't always feel great to play it,
Yeah. I like Taunt quite a lot, but I'm very picky with where I use that. I like it in the places I really like it, and then I hate it in the places I don't like it.
Yeah, but I've used that in conjunction with this, which is great.
Yes.
I just play Come Get Me Bub, heal myself, get a tough card, then play Taunt. Who cares about the attack? And then I get to draw 3 cards. That's just really cool. Anytime you can draw cards, the game is really awesome, obviously. The more cards you draw, the better the game is, the more fun you're having, the bigger hand. It's all great.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed these two together on Drax. So if anyone hasn't tried Come Get Me Bub yet, but has it, maybe isn't that into Taunt, but has it, Drax with Taunt, he already gets a bonus when he gets attacked. And he also already likes healing a lot. So these two cards in combination there, absolutely love it. I think it's become one of my favorite decks in the game.
Yeah, and crucially, Drax doesn't have to. He doesn't have to take damage. He just has to get attacked. So the tough card, you can still get a token or draw a card if you need one off of the attack. I've been enjoying this a lot. I think you mentioned earlier with Black Widow. It's finally made Anticipation a card that I can use. I have wanted to use that card since it came out, but it's very difficult to actually put in the deck. It was always one that I cut because it's unreliable, right? You don't know when you're going to actually have a minion come out. I mean, it's an upgrade, so you can play it, and then if you need it later, you can trigger it, but oftentimes it would just kind of sit there for a long time, and it wouldn't trigger when I actually wanted it. I've used it with Thor in my Thor protection builds, which I think can be fun because he has a way of summoning and protection right with his signature cards. So that was cool. But, this is a really fun build with Black Widow, I think.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned Thor as well, though. The last game we did with this was with Thor protection, Come Get Me Bub, and it just made his, card draw on the hero turn super, super consistent. And, the toughs worked beautifully. And, characters like Drax and Thor are really good at defeating minions already. So, they can quite easily clean up what they bring in. Black Widow, Widow's Bite, typically a card that some people maybe would argue is maybe her worst preparation. I think that's kind of got new life as well because of this, because you're getting those minions more often, that kind of thing. And whether it's Black Widow or Drax or Thor, I've been throwing at least one copy of Anticipation in and really enjoying it. So it's beautiful when a new card helps, I guess Taunt is fairly recent, but then also a card like Anticipation, which, goes back to Wave 4.
Yeah. No, I love that you can take these new cards and then immediately I had ideas like, oh, this would be really great with Thor and Black Widow, like Wave 1 heroes, right? I'm going way back to try different stuff. And I think that's really cool. That's like the living card game model is great in that way, right? We're getting these cards now, but the older stuff isn't obsolete. We can go back and revisit that. And sometimes cards come out to help. It's also a tactic, which I haven't tried this with Cyclops yet. Have you?
I have not. I've got a couple of deck ideas in mind with it, but I've not tried it. But I can only imagine he'll like it. But I think it'll be good.
I want to try this with Cyclops because the tactic immediately makes me think about Cyclops, but then also the fact that it provides immediate targets for all of his other upgrades, right? So I'm going to get a minion, and healing and tough is always good. Yep. But then if I have a bunch of upgrades in my hand, and a lot of them have that temporary keyword, they're just for minions, I can immediately put something on one of those minions. And the fact that it costs 0 means that I'm not going to spend my hand to do that. So that's really great. I want to try that build next. Okay, so we got to talk about Valkyrie now, because I've been trying this with Valkyrie. Because I don't like having dead heroes in my collection. And Valkyrie is, to me, as close as I've gotten to a dead hero. Like, for years, I just don't play Valkyrie. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I should go back to Valkyrie. And I play it once, and I'm like, these cards are fundamentally broken. They don't work together. This hero doesn't work. I don't want to play this anymore. But, glutton for punishment that I am, I keep going back and trying again. Have you tried this with Valkyrie yet?
I will admit I have not. There's so many characters I want to try with this, which speaks to the strength of the card. I don't think I've even got through half of them, and I've played several.
Ooh. There's a lot I want to try this with. I haven't tried this with Colossus yet. That's another one I want to try.
We have. That was good.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
I bet.
It didn't feel as good as Drax, just because he doesn't necessarily need to get as much value from the healing typically, but still, getting the tough for 0 cost, it feels very good.
There's so many ways to get tough cards now. I feel like Colossus is drowning in options.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For protection, at least.
Yeah, in protection for sure. Okay, so with Valkyrie, I've tried this, and you put the minion into play, and then you heal 3, which is good. And she really should have 14 printed hit points, so I could use limitless stamina, but that's another conversation. And unshakable, right? Like, she really would benefit from both of those.
Oh, yeah.
But then you pull the minion, and you get a tough card, and that's good. I just feel like she... I don't know. What's your thoughts on Valkyrie? I don't even know how to phrase this.
Valkyrie is a hero I think is interesting, but like you say, there's multiple broken elements from her defense card to her nemesis being way overtuned to just a little bit of awkwardness. And I could see this being pretty good with her, but at the same time, it's not going to help you unless you're set up with like a good enough attack to respond to it, I would imagine. And she has Chooser of the Slain, which is already actually a really, really good card. If that was an
Yeah.
aspect card, that would be phenomenal.
Yes, it would.
So she already has good minion summoning. So yeah, I have slightly mixed feelings, but I feel like if I was playing her in protection in solo, probably definitely. I feel like I would try and include this, but like I said, I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I tried it, and I tried to build with this and with Taunt. I had a copy of Anticipation in there. I was trying to get the tough card right and then be able to put Shield Maiden maybe on the villain or Deathglow on the villain to be able to use Taunt to trigger Shield Maiden. Like, I was trying to do these things. I just feel like she doesn't quite work. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I think she is the only character that I feel comfortable saying like just doesn't really work. And I'm happy that people figured out ways to enjoy Valkyrie, and that's great. Even Hulk, I feel like, is bad, but he works. If that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Like I can see what he's trying to do, and you can do it. It's just not very good. A lot of times I'm playing Valkyrie, and I feel like it just doesn't work. I don't have enough to pay for Deathglow, and then I ready up, and I can't pay to put it on something else, and I don't know. Her ally
yeah.
is bad. Like, there's just a lot of issues.
I would say that I think in multiplayer she can do well, but there's like a babysitting period where she needs to get Dragon Fae and everything needs to kind of line up throughout that bit, and someone needs to help her out to begin with. Then she's really good, I feel like. Again, if her nemesis comes up, then she's going to need a lot of help again. Whereas other characters, the nemesis can be really bad, but at least they're allowed to play the game.
Yeah, the Nemesis. I mean, I think when Phoenix came out, a lot of people said, this is terrible. This is the worst Nemesis in the game. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true. It has not proven to be true in my experience. But Valkyrie's Nemesis, boy, like, it just becomes, it's almost a scoop, right? When I'm playing solo and that thing comes out, it's like, well, I guess we'll just try again another day. She doesn't have the tools to deal with it and then deal with everything else. Like, she already can't really thwart. She has those upgrades. Was it Flight of the Valkyrie, or is that what it is
Yeah.
that you clear? Like, that's fine, but it's often, ironically, too much thwart. Like, I don't need 5 off the main scheme. I can't use it on a side scheme. Yeah, I don't know. I tried. I played a number of games with this card trying to get Valkyrie to work. I'm comfortable now saying it doesn't.
I salute your efforts. I think that was very brave of you. And, she's still not going to move up my list of characters to try this card with. I'm probably still going to prioritize a few others first. But I
Yeah.
think I will get to it one time. I am interested to try it. It feels almost like cheating to say this, but you pair her with a Cable. He can bring in a bunch of the stuff she needs to really function. It works well, but that kind of goes for Cable with anyone. So it is what it is. But that's one avenue you can try.
Cable is awesome. Anyway, this is not about Cable. Let's get back to Come Get Me Bub. I talked about Valkyrie long enough. How powerful is Come Get Me Bub?
This card is a moving target because its power kind of scales in the opposite direction as the difficulty of the minions in whatever given scenario you're playing. So a bunch of weak minions, and I think this card is really good. A bunch of strong minions, with like powerful when defeated effects. So the most annoying thing is when this pulls a quick strike minion and it's like, my tough, what am I going to do here? Those aren't super common, but teamwork. Or when when revealed attack doesn't trigger here because it bypasses when revealed, which is really really good. For me, this is a strong card, but it has bad places to go. So the overall, I want to hear your thoughts before I think I say anything slightly more definitive.
I think this card is strong. I think it has just like a base level strength to it. I do agree that it depends on the minion, right? If you pull something really nasty, then yeah, like that's bad. If you pull Dreadpool or, any of those like really bad minions, I think the tough card is just so good. Like, tough cards are so valuable, and they have become more valuable as the game has gone on. I think they have always had just like a base value because, preventing damage is just good. But as Steady and Stalwart have proliferated, tough cards have just become a de facto stun, right? Like,
Yeah.
unless they have piercing, which doesn't always come up, but it does happen.
Rare.
It's pretty rare, yeah. And I hope they don't bring it out too much because that almost becomes like another Steady. But this is just a way to get some relief, right? You can pull a minion. It may not be that bad. Maybe you can deal with it. Maybe you can't. But the tough card is so valuable. Healing 3 is also great. If you're protection and you're generally inviting attacks, not every protection build does that, but if you are, this is just a way to prevent you from having to flip down, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think it does have a base level strength. I think it has a pretty high floor, and it has a pretty reasonable, like, to low ceiling. So it's like a really good mid-power card, in my opinion. It's not going to get super good because the variability only has downside, right? There's no upper level variability of this card where, like, you might draw something great and it's good for you, like Taunt, right? You get an attack, you might draw into something really great that changes your game. This isn't going to happen here. But what it does do is just like prevent a lot of really bad stuff. And if the minion isn't bad, it's just a win all around. So power level, I think, if I'm on a scale of 10, I'd put this at like a 7 or 8 in terms of strength. What about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm so nerd in my head. I'm like, well, what is a 1 card and what is a 10 card, and where do they fall exactly? But I feel like 7 is a pretty good place for it. I liked what you're saying about Stadium Stalwart, which I fully agree with. But also, they've introduced more ways that just punish blocking with allies, and this also kind of gets around that, which is really, really good as well. But it also, and this is not a power thing, I'm sort of going back a little bit talking about the card, but I like that it's a good way to survive attacks and heal, etc., that isn't chump blocking. And that being a zero cost card, rather than feel like, oh, I'm going to get attacked, I'm going to probably have to play this ally to, defend me. What I can do instead is play a zero cost card and have more cards left in my hand to do fun other things that my character actually wants to do. Kind of the defense tax, which is, I think, especially prevalent. Expert, especially against the harder villains, they can do 6+ damage. You kind of need to defend. But Come Get Me Bub offers a different way to do that lets you do more of your fun stuff around it. So yeah, big fan of it, and I'm gonna agree with the 7. Like I say, it can vary hugely. Certain scenarios and matchups, you could rate this as a 10, I think, and then certain other ones, at least a 9. And certain other ones, obviously, it drops quite a bit down. But very solid card. Very happy to have this in my collection.
Yeah, I think, and that kind of takes us to the last category we talk about, which is fun, and we've kind of already touched on that. This card, in terms of fun, is like right up there with some of the better ones that we've had recently for me. I think it just feels really good. There's something about going into the encounter deck and not searching, but discarding until you get something, right? When I play one way or another, for example, I go search for something and then I pull out the one that I want. That doesn't feel as like base level fun for me as the kind of like revealing until something comes out. That's just like a good feeling as a gamer, I think.
Yeah, I think it's almost like, whisper it quietly, but a little bit like a gamble. It's a risk, it's the thrill. It's a little bit like Domino. When you accidentally pull into that jackpot on your pistol when you do a bunch of damage. It's Bishop when you, find a bunch of resource cards and then you get to heal a bunch, as opposed to, not finding them and in your uniform. That's a whole different character and topic. But it's just the kind of unknown and then seeing how that's going to play out. There's just an inherent thrill to it. And I think toughs are satisfying. And I think healing in hero form is relatively rare. I mean, I know we have like first aid in the core set, but it's something that not every deck has, or there aren't that many ways to get it. And this is well costed for identity healing. So I think that's very satisfying and feels kind of different in that way, which really elevates the fun for me. And I think my final sort of point I just want to add on to this is kind of what I was saying before, that being a zero cost card that will protect you, you have room to play other fun things. It's almost a fun enabler from other places by giving you just room to do more stuff, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah, I think, you know, just like yeah, like the gamble you said where you're drawing and you don't know what you're gonna get. If this card instead was let you, search the encounter deck, it would be insane. So I'm glad they didn't do that, right? I'm glad that you have
Yeah.
to draw until you get a random one, and then you have to think in your head, like, well, which ones have I seen? Which ones might be in there? Or maybe you don't care, and it's just like, devil may care, let's go for it. It
Yeah.
also really helps certain heroes, like you said, the defense tax. There's some heroes that just, anytime you have one defense, it just feels bad to defend, right? Like, you might be getting attacked for 6, but you think to yourself, like, what's the point of defending and only taking 5 unless I'm going to die? I might as well just take it all and then have my ability to do something else on my turn.
Yeah.
Just to go back to Valkyrie again, that's how I felt playing this. It was like, oh, I'm getting hit for a lot, but like I only have one defense. So why not just I'll just take all of it unless it's going to kill me. And that's how I feel with Star-Lord too, who I know you like a lot. Star-Lord's the same thing. It's like, oh, I could defend, but like it's only one defense, and that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. I'll do it in an emergency, but I don't want to do it whatsoever. And just a slightly different topic I want to bring up before I forget. Well, I don't think we mentioned this, or not in great detail, but Come Get Me Bub does have a cost arrow. So if you don't find a minion, like if the encounter deck empties before you find a minion,
Yes.
you do not get the healing or tough. So when the deck is nearly empty, this card kind of often goes offline, which is a slight downside that is probably worth mentioning, but it is minor.
Yeah. Or in scenarios where there aren't a ton of minions, right? It can be risky sometimes. For
Speed run
example,
toward the acceleration token.
yeah, yeah. Ultron doesn't have a lot of minions in his. I think of him in my mind as a minion-heavy scenario, which he is, but ironically doesn't include many minions. I think he only has 2 of those advanced Ultron drones.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
The rest of them are just your cards, and so in certain scenarios you have to be smart about it, right? You don't look at this, it might be like, what are the odds I'm going to get one of those Ultron drones? And what are the odds I'm going to miss? Because missing feels bad. Anything that draws out minions, including Looking for Trouble, including Angela that you mentioned, anytime you miss, it feels really bad.
Yeah. What I will say is, when you don't miss, at least, after discarding cards, what I like, and this is maybe a slightly slower way to play or slightly more involved. I don't expect any new players to, suddenly adopt this, but when you've discarded a bunch of cards to find something, you have that information of what you've discarded in the discard pile. So now I know, oh, the advances are gone. The villain's not going to do this. You have more information to play around. You know a little bit more about what's likely to come up in the next few turns. And I will say I have enjoyed that. We tried this with Apocalypse, and he's got these attachments that equips a boost effect, but discard a couple of those, and I know they're not coming up for the rest of the cycle. Feels pretty good.
Yeah, you are. One of the things I've enjoyed as we've done some content together is getting to know your playstyle and how it meshes with mine. You're much more the analytical kind of like head player where you're like, okay, I've seen this and this. Okay, I've seen the advances. So, what are the odds? This is going to be there. Well, now I can flip down because I know I haven't done this, blah, 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 blah. I'm just like the gut player. That's why I play all games. I look at my hand of cards, and I look at the board state, and I'm like, what feels good right now? Like, what feels right? I'm like, let's go for it. Let's grab a minion. I'm going to look at the deck, at the counter deck, and if it's like, you're a quarter or 20% of the deck, I might be like, it's maybe not the time. But other than that, I'm like, well, do I need the tough card right now? How's my healing? Like, let's go for it. Or taunt, too. It's like, well, I don't know what, like, the cost benefit, 2 resources, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Let's just play it. Let's get some cards in hand and see what we can do. So I'm much more of the, like, I just have a feel for it. And so I often don't know what's in the counter deck as well. I don't
That's
study
totally
the discard pile.
That's totally fair. And I won't always do it. And the better a game is going, the less I'll do it because and sometimes taking risks is just inherently fun. Like I know I shouldn't do this, but maybe I'll do this anyway. But kind of what I said earlier, I think this game is in particular really good at letting people express themselves. So you don't have to play it in a nerdy analytical way. You can go completely on instinct, and you have a lot of fun with it. Some people play more thematically, some people play really mechanically, and it's all totally valid ways to play.
Yeah, taking a risk is sometimes fun is the most Star-Lord player thing I think you could say. So,
Guilty as charged.
yeah, that's you. Okay, so we've kind of gone through all of the categories. Let's do some final thoughts and give a score on it before we finish up. Do you want to go first or second?
I would like to go second.
Ooh, okay. Final word comes to Villain Theory then. Okay. I will say very high praise throughout the episode we have had for this card. First off, the art, amazing. 10 out of 10. I love the art. I think it's great. I think it's evocative. I think the image is very dynamic. It's awesome. Theme, it all comes together. I'm a little disappointed that there's no flavor text, but maybe the title of the card kind of can take that place. It is in quotes. But the title, what it does, the art, what I know about Wolverine as a character, all of it comes together. Awesome. The power, I think we talked about. I'm mid to upper on it. I think it has a pretty high floor because a tough card is just good. It doesn't have a very high ceiling. Like I said, the variability is all on the downside. So you can just draw a really bad minion, or you can draw a quick strike minion or something like that, and that sucks. The fun is just like awesome. Like, this is a fun card. Anytime you get to do stuff, it's good. Discarding the encounter deck until you get something that, like, it's almost like you're gambling or pulling a slot machine. You get that little fix of like, what am I going to get? That's super fun. For me, I'm going to give this card a 9 out of 10. I think it is awesome. It is a card I think Protection has been crying out for a long time. I think this helps a lot of Protection builds. I think it helps a lot of characters. Having the tactic trait is great. I just think overall this is an awesome card, and yeah, I really like it. Honestly, I'm going to change my score. I think this is a 10 out of 10. I don't know how you can make this card better, to be quite honest with you. Like, I just don't know how. I don't know what I would change in this card to make it better. So I'm going to say 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what you say. The theme, the fun, the art, everything just meshes together. It's really in a very good way. And I was genuinely thinking to myself, how could we make this card better? What is the problem with it? And I think one of the big downsides is no flavor text, but there's no room for it. There's no real room for it on the card as printed. You could argue, but no, the downsides are very few. I almost think as a card that enables fun. Sometimes using this, I get more fun from other stuff because I've used this, but this has still enabled that fun. So I'm between a 9 and a 10 myself. I kind of want to say 9, so they've got, I don't want to let, if fantasy like games, if Tony is listening, I don't want to, make him think, this card is perfect. I got to keep aiming up.
But no, I do think so.
Well, it's the designers in general,
Yeah.
Pass it on. Pass the message on. I think I'm going to go up to a 10 though as well, because this is my favorite aspect cards in a long time. It's enabled lots of different decks. I've brought all these different characters out, and I think this is a card you could argue there are very few to no characters this is bad for, but then some it's really good for. But it's not like, I put this card in my deck, I win every game. But yeah, it's in a real sweet spot for everything in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to say 10 out of 10. I love this card.
Yeah, I just don't know. Just to touch on your last point there, I don't know what character I wouldn't put this in if I'm building Protection. And maybe part of that's because it's new, so I'm just like excited about the card. But I think it fits in so many builds, right? Even if you're not playing a deck that cares about minions that much, the healing and the tough is so valuable that, like, why not? And it costs 0. Like, I don't know. I just think this is really good, and I don't know who I would not include this with in a Protection deck for the foreseeable future. It's not an auto include, it's not one of those, but it just feels like it works for everybody.
Yeah, I think there's like a couple characters that, they might want to particularly defend, or that, the tough might jump in front of their defense card. They might, a little bit feel bad slightly, but it's like very minor. Like it's still a good card. Even, Nightcrawler, who it came with, who's very defensive. I know, not leaping to put this card in him most of the time, but I still get use out of it even there. So it is, a very generally applicable card.
Ironically, maybe not ironically, but like funny for me, Vision is one I have not immediately thought of with this card. Like the minions generally don't matter a ton to him if you're sticking an intangible. And also the tough card doesn't matter a ton. Like he's not taking that much damage. The healing doesn't matter. So like right away, the way I play Vision at least, it doesn't feel like a card I'll probably use with him a lot. But, I could see value in a red-green Spider-Woman deck, right? Where you're going to play Bring It, Pinned Down, Come Get Me Bub, all those things. This works great with Pin Down. If you pull a minion out, that's a 2 attack, great. Pull it out, get the heal, get the tough, slap Pin Down, and forget about that minion. So this is really, really awesome. And I love the way it interacts with Taunt, another one of my favorite cards. I could go on and on about this card, and we have for almost an hour. So anything else you want to say about it before we wrap up?
Come Get Me Bub is good. If you haven't tried it, try it and enjoy it.
All right, so Villain Theory, we didn't introduce you at the top because I feel like everyone knows who you are. You're way bigger content creator than I am, so I don't need to, shill for you. But tell us where people can find you. Obviously, all the links will be down below, but let us know where we can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube under the name of Villain Theory. Surprise, surprise. You can find my podcast, Shadow of the Cast, on Spotify or anywhere else like that. Probably where you can find this podcast as well. So that's kind of where I'm at, the two main places.
Yeah. Let me just ask you before we go. The name Villain Theory, where does that come from?
It comes from D&D, where I was the DM, the dungeon master, and I controlled the villain. So that is its true origin.
You're a D&D player.
Yeah, it predates me even knowing about Marvel Champions, which is funny because villains are such a significant part of this. Even the word is in every game, so it's a good coincidence. But that's why I've been doing a lot of villain stuff on my channel recently. But typically, I'm not like, I'm not the villain guy doing all villain stuff. It just worked out that way.
Yeah, that's Critical Encounters, another podcast. They focus on the villain cards. So, do you still play D&D?
You know what? I haven't played it, much in a while. I've had a couple of years, off certain pandemic happened, and like I just didn't really. I tried to play it a little bit there, like online, but afterwards it never the group came back together. But we've recently been talking about it. I think I'm going to be playing next month, hopefully. So that's really exciting.
That's super cool. Speaking of playing, we should do a gameplay sometime. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm super down.
2-player intercontinental gameplay. You and me. And I'm sure Come Get Me Bub will be there at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do it. Look for that in the future. We got to figure out how to set that up. But I think that could be fun. People might like that. I feel like the gameplay space is kind of saturated. There's a lot of solo gameplay on YouTube. If you like watching that on Marvel Champions, you can find that just about everywhere. But maybe we could add a little bit more. Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, why not? I looking forward to that. We in our Every Hero's Worst Card series a little bit, we did say that I was going to try and make you play something a little bit more Alter Ego heavy that isn't naturally an Alter Ego character. Ooh. So I would like to reiterate that challenge to you.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, well, we will set that up. We'll talk about that off screen and figure a time when we can sync up our schedules and do some gameplay. I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Villain Theory, and thanks for joining us, listeners. The People's Podcast will be back again in a couple weeks, and thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye, everybody.
See ya.